Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, and today we're back at Duelist Den. And the last time we were here, we took a time trip back to the 9th century AD. And that's where we're going again today. When we were here before in the 9th century, we took a look at the Maldon Viking Sword. And this is a sword made by Windlass Steelcraft, and it's part of their Battle Cry line. Well, we're going to take another look at that sword today. We're going to look at that sword transformed. And here it is. So let me tell you about it. Got him. Well, let's see if I can get him again. Well, I'm back here at Duelist Den, and I've got the Maldon Viking Sword again. And I wanted to spend a little more time discussing an aspect of it that I only touched on last time. Obviously, when you look at this, what catches your eye is the weathered blued finish. And that might not be your cup of tea. Now, if you only want the sword for backyard slashing, well, that might not bother you. But if you wanted to do medieval reenacting, this is probably not going to cut it for you. I mean, you're probably going to want a sword that is either fully polished or at least has a grayed iron finish that would make it look more like a sword of the period that's been used, right? But this blued finish, though it's not unattractive, well, it's not really everybody's cup of tea. So, to be honest with you, that blued finish not really my cup of tea either. So I decided to transform the Maldon sword from this into this. A much more historical looking sword. And I tried to get as correct as I could for the period. So there were really 3 steps in doing this. The first one was taking that blued finish off of all of the exposed metal. The second step was to reconfigure the grip here on the hilt. I mean, it had been a wood grip wrapped with thin leather strips that crisscross each other, right? Look like this. Well, what I did is I took that parallel-sided handle, right? It was the same at the top and at the bottom, and I tapered it towards the pommel. That was the first thing I did. And I have to say, that actually makes it feel 100% better in the hand than it did before. All right, so the next thing I did was I put a couple of leather risers on it. I didn't do as good a job as I would have liked to on that. And then I covered the whole grip with a thin brown leather and glued that down. And after that's set, I wrapped the grip with waxed linen cord. Now, you know, there aren't any surviving grip coverings from the period that I'm aware of. So maybe they didn't have them like this, I don't know. But I've seen later ones like this, and there's no reason to think that they wouldn't have had them in the 9th century as well. And it makes for an incredibly comfortable and very secure grip. That waxed linen cord gives it just enough tack, along with the risers, to really give you a good grip. And it helps with the balance of the piece, right? So that was number 2. And then the third thing is the scabbard. And I'll show you that. And the final step in the transformation of the Maldon Viking sword was to ditch that awful, flimsy, inaccurate leather scabbard and to make this wood cord linen wrap scabbard for it. Now, I know you're probably more used to wood cord leather wrap scabbards, but back in the 8th and 9th centuries, these linen wrap scabbards were actually quite popular. And this one's painted with gesso to waterproof it. In the day, they would have been painted with beeswax to waterproof them. So this was the final step, and now I think we have a much more historically appropriate 9th century type sword. than the way it came from the factory. Well, last time we had to fight off Harold the Horny, you may recall. So now we've got his son is back. It's Harold II. We've got to stop him from ravaging Blymire's Hollow. So let's see how we do. I think we got him. So swords of this type were primarily used on the edge, slashing swords. But this does have a serviceable point. And it could be used for the thrust, especially against unarmored opponents. I would have had trouble getting through chain, that's for sure. But most opponents at the time were not wearing mail. So it was kind of a hit or miss proposition. So let's see. It does quite well. So, serviceable with both the point and the edge. You know, for years now, I've watched the TV show Vikings, which I suppose a lot of you have too, watched on the History Channel here in the USA. And it always kind of cracks me up that none of them wear helmets. And back then, of course, a helmet would have been probably the only piece of armor that almost everybody would have gotten. It'd be the first thing they would get. And I mean, I kind of get it. If you're on TV and you're paying a lot of money for Lagatha or Ragnar Lothbrok, you know, you're getting some handsome devil or beautiful girl, you don't want to go covering up that moneymaker face with, you know, a big piece of iron. But the fact is, once these sharpened crowbars start flying around, this would be something that you would absolutely want, because otherwise, that's what happens. And nobody wanted that. Alright, I'm going to be honest. Doing this scene is probably going to result in a little psychological scarring, because that squash is definitely suggestive of something. But, here it goes. So I just made him Jewish. Alright, there's a lot left, so take another whack. Taking them down an inch at a time. When we started, we could have called him John Holmes. Now we got to call him Stubby. And I think that's it. Well, I know that doing this sort of a video is kind of a departure for me, right? And it's a far cry from the historical firearm stuff that I usually do. And believe me, this is not going to replace the firearms videos. Got plenty of those planned, and I really enjoy doing them. But it's fun to branch out. So I'm enjoying doing this, but the thing I need to know is, are you enjoying watching it? Because if you don't like them, well, I can keep playing and not film it, right? I won't have to subject you guys to it. So I'd like to know if you like this. So if you like it, give it a big thumbs up and mention it in the comments. If you don't like them, let me know. I've got a few more planned, but they can all stop right here as far as the sword stuff goes. I want to know if you guys are digging it. And if you are, I hope you subscribe to the channel. And I hope that you enjoy the cap and ball and flintlock stuff that's out there as well. And, you know, the next sword will probably be a medieval arming sword, more of a knightly sword. And that one will be a pretty nice one from Dynasty Forge. So, if you'd like to see a Dynasty Forge sword video, let me know. And if you just want me to go back to the 18th and 19th centuries, let me know that too. But I am enjoying periodically dropping in here on the 9th century. But I've got to say, living in the 21st century in America is about like winning the lottery. When you think of all the different times and places where you could have been born, because believe me, it's fun to play in the 9th century, but living there might not have been such a great blast. Not when the Vikings were coming up the creek after you, or your teeth were falling out, or you were being worked to death by the lord of the manor, right? Because let's face it, we couldn't all be lords of the manor back then. Somebody had to be behind that oxen plowing the furrows. And you know, I'm lucky that I live in a time and place where I have the leisure to play it being somebody else, because for most of recorded history, people only had time to live their own lives. They didn't go playing somebody else. You know, you didn't take a guy from the 9th century and he didn't go play Roman centurion, right? He was too busy trying to put enough food together to live through the winter. So I recognize that I'm blessed, but I do love history, and there's something about putting on the clothes, wielding the weapons, wearing 10 pounds of steel on your head, or I didn't wear it today because, man, it's just too cumbersome for dicking around, but I've got like a 40-pound mail shirt that I shimmy into, and let me tell you, it gives you an appreciation for what folks then had to go through. The same as shooting a flintlock does, or shooting a cap and ball revolver. It gives you an appreciation for how things were then, and putting on the clothes of that period, I think, just takes you back there more, you know, puts you more into it. And that's why I love doing it. So I hope you guys love watching it. I know I'm rambling on. Give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week.